tell me first, like where you're based and what area you service, whether that's the whole country or a specific geographic region, with your own concessions that you're
So
building.
we're out of Mount Joy, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
So that's maybe like 15 minutes from Harrisburg, the capital.
Okay.
Amish country. And yeah, we pretty much serve the East Coast for the most part. Our customers are as far as Maine and as far south as like Florida. Yeah,
Okay.
Florida. So yeah.
And are they?
So that's well,
Oh,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
I was just gonna say, are they finding you primarily through internet searches when it's a long distance relationship like me? And like what I'm getting at, when I got my first truck, it was 2010, and there was no one building food trucks in the Pittsburgh area, and I actually ended up buying two different trucks in New Jersey, at a place called Vending Trucks, and I had to drive out there, and then I had to drive the truck across Pittsburgh or across Pennsylvania, or decide to ship it, which was out of my price range. So if someone further away wants to work with you, like what is the process? Do they have to come to you, or do you send them plans? How do you make that work?
So we have it both ways. We have customers who will come visit us,
Mhm.
and we'll get the initial floor plan and the drawings and all that stuff done, and then they'll come and pick it up when it's all said and done. But we also have the customer that I've never seen them. We just do everything through the internet, and then I arrange a third party shipper
Yeah.
to drop it to them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it works both ways for the most part. But ironically, our customers who were the furthest away, they actually drove here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. So I
yeah.
think
That's very. And some of my customers, I'm like, you could easily drive here. They're in Pennsylvania, but I've never seen them. We just did
that
everything
that
via
is
the internet, and email.
because I don't have proof of this, but I suspect there are a lot more food truck builders than there were 15 years ago as the
There
industry
is,
began.
there is, there
And
is.
it's interesting to me when I hear that like someone from several states away chose to work with anyone else and like why they make that decision. And I'm sure there are reasons. So do you have an idea of like how people are finding you and why they're choosing you? I do remember you having the cotton candy at the
Yeah,
convention.
yeah.
That set you apart, but that's like a physical space, right? Like, so like you
Right,
can't
yeah, right,
like
right.
set up cotton candy to give to people. So
I think, I think, we have a good reputation amongst the food truck community in like the forums and all of that.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's very helpful. And sometimes when I'm talking to the customer, I kind of geek out a little bit. So I'm very passionate. So I love giving away the knowledge. And oftentimes I tell them, whether you go with me or not, here's some information you need to have when you want to select a builder, because I think the most important thing that a lot of people miss is the anatomy of a food trailer or a truck.
Mm-hmm.
The anatomy is the most important thing. If you don't understand the anatomy, then you may be fond of, you may look at things from a price perspective, right? So you may look at, well, I can get this in China or Alibaba, or I can get a trailer in Texas, which is Mexican built, which is, no, okay, that's your thing, no problem. But what's the anatomy look like? When I remove the shiny stuff, what's under the hood?
Sure.
So that's super important. And those are the things that I educate a lot about. And
You're
I
talking.
think that kind of pushes us over.
That makes sense. Like both quality of build and also layout, I assume, is what you're talking about. Would you say,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because I
yeah.
know my own history. My first truck in 2010, I was just 29 years old, and I had this very small restaurant that wasn't going out of business, but I wasn't making a living either. We were just open for lunch in downtown Pittsburgh, weird location in the back of a cathedral. And my partner and I had the idea, like, well, what if we get a food truck? That could really help us. And it ended up being one of the smartest business decisions I made. And I loved it because I got to go to new places all the time, but it was essentially a moving billboard for my business. But it was the cheapest truck I could find because that's all I could afford. And I
Yeah.
got a deal that was like 50% down, no interest payments for 2 years, I only had a quarter of the down payment, so I borrowed money from some friends, and that's how I did it. But it was this giant moving billboard, like I said, and it kind of turned my brand, which wasn't famous nationally by any means. It was called Frankfurt, but in Pittsburgh, people knew about it, and I think
Right.
the primary reason we were known is because we were early in the food truck game. And I know the market's far from saturated, but there are probably 100 trucks in the Pittsburgh market, if not more right now. But when I started, there were like 2 others, and we might have been the first ones that were actually cooking food and driving around. I know of one that was stationary, and I know of another one that was moving, but had all like prepackaged baked goods. So what I learned like the hard way, and I don't regret it because it was my chance to get started.
Right.
Like my kitchen was not laid out for what I was doing. I had this giant steam well. I never used it. It was just storage because I didn't need it for my menu. And then the propane, I want to talk to you a little bit about propane safety. Any builders, I'm always interested in hearing about propane and generator tricks you may know. But the propane and the generator just on like an extension off the back of the truck. It was a 1988 postal truck, and this was 2010, so it was 22 years old. It had been at least 2 other food trucks previously. I could see the old like etching on the white truck surface. It was kind of like the background you have, only if you had erased your complete concessions.
Yeah, gotcha.
But then I could see like an outline. So I know it was called Bonnie and Clyde's Roadside Grill at one point in time. It was also called Eddie's Movable Feast. It got me started, but it was awkward with this extension. It was low to the ground, and the propane tank was just like sitting there, kind of surprised that it was even like road legal, but it was. And the guys I would fill propane from would call it a moving gas bomb. And then the generator was back there too. And on top, it had the big mushroom ventilation that if anyone else drove, or even if I drove, was always in danger of like getting clipped off. You're an underpass, and I sold a lot of hot dogs, so I had a stack of bun trays, but there was no way to put them, and they'd slide around when I was driving. I had to keep the extra propane tank like secured inside the truck with bungee cords, which I know is a bad idea, but it's just how else are you going to do it when you're getting
Right, I got you.
5 years later, I had the chance to get a second truck, and it was a custom build, and it made a world of difference for me. So like those bun racks, I had custom built shelving that fit them perfectly, so I could stack like up to 15 on the truck, and each rack held 64 buns. So I sell that many hot dogs in a day. And then the propane tanks were elevated off the ground, so if someone rear-ended me, they weren't going to be hit directly. I know some people have stuff under the tank, and so what I always tell people when I'm coaching them is like you've got to have an idea of what your menu is before you look at getting a truck, and then you've got to have the truck build out if you're in a position to do it. I never want to discourage someone from getting started like I did, but like if you're in a position to actually plan it out, you're going to have so much more efficiency in your service operation because you're using the equipment that you were meant to be using, and you have everything placed where you need it to be placed, and you can even think through where your people will be and positioned and that sort of thing. So it sounds like we're on the same page. As far as your own build outs, what is like the most unique one you've ever done? Have you done anything like particularly wild or crazy?
I would say, well, in 2025, our most challenging build, I'm going to say this. We did, it was a 36-foot pizza trailer. They wanted a bathroom, men and women, and we had to have a walk-in refrigerator.
Okay, on a truck. That's a huge trailer, 36 feet.
Yeah, 36. So by DOT standards, it was a bumper pull. That's the longest bumper pull you can make. 36 footer.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's wild.
So, yeah, that was a lot.
So was the idea a dine-in experience for them, or
no? So they had some event that they went to, and they needed to be at this event for a week and not need to restock.
Okay.
They need to be able to have everything in that trailer to run efficiently for an entire week.
That's crazy. This is why I love these interviews, because I've done a lot, like I've said, but I've never seen anything like that. So did you build multiple service windows, or was there just one window with all?
Only had one service window.
It's really interesting.
super huge oven. We had to, man, we had to brace it, the steel underneath, so
Huh.
much steel to
Yeah,
because it was so heavy. The oven was heavy.
I'm sure.
It was a monster. 12 foot. I think that the hood was 12 foot, 12 foot hood.
It's like a
Yeah.
restaurant.
It was a restaurant on wheels. That's what I call
That's
it.
cool. Dine in.
It's actually the one right here in this video. I'm
Okay.
actually inside of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah.
guess though, from their perspective, if you're plugged into that scene and there are multiple events you can go to for a week, it makes a lot of sense if you don't have to move.
Yeah,
I
it
know.
makes sense what they were trying to accomplish. I got it. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, I got it, but it was just a challenge. That's all.
Yeah, there's certainly
Yeah.
events that I've done that were multiple days, and yeah, it was always stressful trying to figure out how do you reload.
Yeah.
But those were not common for me. But if they're doing those all the time, that's really interesting. So when you have a rig that big, trailer, I only ever had like true food trucks, so I don't know as much about trailers from a driving standpoint. You know, I get the basics, but how powerful of a pickup truck or other vehicle do you need to pull a 36-foot trailer with a huge heavy
So
pizza
you
oven?
could pull it with a 3500. I always suggest a 30. I mean, you could pull it with a 2500, but I would suggest a 3500. But the kicker is this: 36 feet, and you're going up an incline. The back of that trailer is going to bottom out.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to there's this thing called bogey wheels. So these bogey wheels, so if the trailer ever bottomed out, the bogey wheels would hit first, saving the trailer from getting ruined, ripped
Kind of
apart.
like training wheels on like a bicycle
Correct.
idea.
Exactly.
I can
Yeah.
picture that. I can just
Yeah.
imagine this thing driving down the road. That would be a sight to behold.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think the transport is more of a headache than anything for them.
yeah, well, because that's one of the reasons I really liked my first truck, even though I was saying it wasn't custom built. It was a little smaller, and that always made it easier to park if I'm going
Yeah.
somewhere. And so I think that had a 10-foot cab, and then my next truck had a like closer to 20. I don't know the exact length off the top of my head. And then, do you build exclusively trailers, or do you also do food trucks
We
potentially?
do trucks too. Yeah, we do trucks too. So I think our biggest truck this year, the kitchen part of it was like 20, is it 20, 28 foot, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. It was a
That
huge
is
step
huge.
van.
And
Yeah, it
then
was huge.
I have so many questions just from what you told me already, so this is great. But when you're dealing with a bathroom, that's something I never had in a food truck. Did they just want it, if it wasn't dine in, they wanted it for themselves?
For themselves, yeah. It
They
was for
wanted
themselves.
separate gender bathrooms for themselves? Because he said,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
very interesting, because that's just, I'm thinking from a restaurant standpoint, because it's so big, and that's square footage that could be devoted to like producing sales. And I
Yeah,
don't know how
correct.
many
Yeah.
people were working on this truck, but like it's curious to me that they needed more than one bathroom. Like,
Yeah. It was a whole their whole family, and I guess the
gotcha.
women want to be separate away. I think the guys are gross, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Do most people you work with these days ask for bathrooms? Is that common, or?
It's not super common. I probably put bathrooms in probably 5% of the builds.
Okay.
So
I've,
it's not a common thing.
I've started reading about that a little bit recently, but in my own personal experience, I met a lot of other operators when I had my trucks, and I don't know of anyone who had a bathroom on board. And I used to
I don't
joke.
think I will. If it was my truck, I wouldn't want one.
Yeah, that's interesting. It never ended up being an issue, thankfully. But like, if nature calls, usually there would be someone nearby, whether it was a porta potty or some gracious
Yeah.
person who let you use them at home, or you just drive to the gas station after the shift. But like,
Yep.
I
That's
always
it.
found it was so hot, like on my truck in the summer, especially. You just sweat everything out, so you don't
Just
really.
sweating it out, man. Yep.
It
Exactly.
didn't really come into play. But I have read, I'm part of a few different like Facebook groups with food truck questions, and I see more people requesting bathrooms than I would have guessed. And I have the feeling it's people who don't have much experience, and it's a legitimate thing to be nervous about, because like some shifts are long, 8-10
Yeah.
hours, right? And like,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do if you got to go?
Yeah.
But I just tell people, worst comes to worst, you just put a sign on the window and say, I'll be back, and you figure it
Be
out.
back. I'll be back. That's it.
But yeah, we're all human, and sometimes you got to go. Do you know, especially because you're in Pennsylvania where I am, like once you've decided to go with the bathroom, like what is I'm sure varies by county, but health department code wise, do your bathrooms have to be very separated from the kitchen, obviously they're enclosed, and they probably need their own hand washing sink inside, I'm assuming, just like a restaurant would, right? Like you can't just have the one hand washing sink outside the truck. So like,
So the state of Pennsylvania, as it stands, they really don't have a code on it.
okay, interesting.
Now, when you start getting into these municipalities and townships and these local cities, I think things change. But as for the state, there's nothing.
Okay, interesting to know.
Yeah.
So then, just from a functionality standpoint, like how big were these bathrooms? What is the smallest realistic bathroom you could have?
The smallest is, I think, those bathrooms were like maybe like 4x4 spaces.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So they would just have a toilet, a hand wash sink, and then a cabinet.
gotcha.
Overhead.
Just
Yeah.
trying to help someone who might decide they want that visualize what it would look like.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned having to like bolster the very heavy oven, like when you're building, and this is a big thing where I recommend working with someone like you most of the time, because there are some DIY folks, and it's great to be handy. And I certainly became more handy because I had a food truck, but like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know the first thing about like weight distribution, and I'd be afraid with restaurant equipment that I might like crack an axle if I was just unexperienced placing not even walk-in fridges, but just regular like upright refrigerators and deep fryers and all this stuff. It adds a lot of weight. So like, how much of your plan goes into figuring out how to place things within the truck and how to reinforce them so you don't deal with breaking down on the road because stuff was just too heavy?
Yeah. So I'm a stickler, making sure I know exactly what equipment if the customer's providing the equipment or I'm getting it, I need to know the weight. That's super important to me
Mm-hmm.
because I can't suggest the proper axles to you without knowing this information. If not, I'm just guessing.
Right.
And that's not helpful for me or them at the end of the day. So to know the weight of whatever it is, like the main concern. So like if it's a smoker or a big oven, those are the things I'm super concerned about. So I need to know what those. I know pretty much all the other stuff weighs, but these unique pieces, I need to know what the weight is.
Sure. And
yeah.
Generally, is it safe to say then that as long as you know, there can be a way to work it in, or is there like a hard
absolutely, yeah. I mean, as long as I know, it's either going to say knowing tells me we need 10,000-pound axles or 7,000-pound axles. We need to beef up the main beam. We might need to use a heavier gauge steel.
I see.
All these things. There's a solution for it. I just need to know what the weight is so we can get the proper solution.
Good to know. So there's no equipment is too large for a mobile unit if you're planning effectively.
If you plan, no. I mean, as long as you know it's going to increase the weight of the overall,
right?
Haul. Sense. So that's going to, so now if you had a 2,500 in mind, you may need a 3,500. And if you got really ridiculous, we may be looking at a 450. So.
And when you say 2,500 and 3,500, just because I've never owned a pickup truck, like, what exactly does that mean?
That's like the truck size. So a 2,500 is like a Ford F-250.
Gotcha.
A 3,500 is an F-350. So this tells you how much towing capacity it has.
Okay. So my first truck was a Ford, or my second truck was a Ford, I think F-450, if that makes sense, like a full truck. And then
that's a big boy.
Yeah, it was a former DHL delivery truck that was converted for me. And then my first truck was a Chevy P30, if that means anything. I'm sure it means something to you because you're a mechanic. I just know these makes, and it was interesting in Pennsylvania too when I registered my first truck, despite the fact that it was smaller, was registered as a truck, and the registration was, I don't know, a few $100s a year. And then for whatever reason, my second truck, the bigger of the two, when I went to the DMV to make it official, they could not figure out how to register it as a truck, and they had to just up registering it as a minivan, which makes no sense because it's like clearly a lot larger than a minivan. And then
Right, right.
I only paid like whatever it is for car registration the whole time I had it for the 10 years, like $35
Wow, that's
a
good.
year. Like I think it
Yeah,
was a glitch in the system, but have you ever heard of anything like that? Like, is that?
yeah. So a lot of times when we manufacture trailers as well.
Hmm.
So sometimes when I go to the DMV, um, like they'll ask me, what do you want to register it as? And it's just a matter, even if I put say two, let's say I put two 5,200 pound axles on the trailer.
Hmm.
I can go to the DMV and say, hey, the weight, let's register at the weight of 8,000 pounds. Well, that changes what you're going to pay for your registration.
Yeah, so that's good to know too. It's only a couple $100 a year, but in this
Right.
business,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's
margins are,
really, if you set it at a lower weight rate, you get a cheaper registration.
yeah, it's good to know. And I
Yeah.
assume that might hold true in other states, but I don't actually know.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
Gotcha. So then between trucks and trailers, like what are you selling the most of right now? And like, have you seen a shift towards one or the other in the time you've been doing this?
Trailers, our trailers outsell trucks. And I think the shift is, I've seen that shift since I began, and it's due to the cost. I think at the end of the day, it's cost,
Yeah,
because you can outfit a trailer cheaper than a truck, hands
right.
down.
And if you
Yeah.
already have a pickup truck, it's not an
Right.
extra expense. Whereas like I didn't, I had a Toyota Corolla, so I would have had to buy a truck. And at that point, would you say that the expenses kind of even out, or would a trailer still be less money even if you're buying a pickup?
Um, so I do it two ways.
Hmm.
So I tell the customer, if you can't afford a truck, you can always rent a U-Haul
True.
for the day. I
Mhm.
mean, for the most part, the average guy getting started, he's not doing events every day.
Right.
He's doing the weekends or something like that. So yeah, get you a U-Haul, $20 a day. There's some other little fees in there, but it beats a truck payment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense,
Yeah,
right?
so
If you get
if you go that route, yeah, you're going to still be cheaper. But if you have to buy a pickup truck and then now you assume a truck payment, now it kind of changes things. However, personally, I would still stay with the trailer because of the maintenance on the truck,
Sure.
on
Yeah.
those older step vans.
Truthfully, like a trailer never really occurred to me because I'm older and then I see more of them too. So I always asked that question.
Yeah.
And I probably would have considered it if I had known to consider it. It seems like that's the direction things are going to me. So your comments are kind of confirming that.
Yeah.
I did like the fact that I mentioned being able to fit in smaller spaces with trucks. And you can get your trailer in, but I did like the fact that if the space was tight, I didn't have to
Yeah.
necessarily unhook my pickup truck. I was just done and I could start setting up. That's
Yeah,
really
for sure.
the only positive I can think of at this point, even though I have a soft spot for food trucks. And I think
Yeah.
you see them on TV too, even if you've never had one, and they kind of feel more glamorous to me. Like maybe
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
with your brand a little, but practically it's really hard to defend them as a way to go. If someone comes to me and asks, but ultimately it's personal preference, I suppose.
Yeah. There you go. It's preference, because if you can't drive a trailer, if you can't back a trailer,
That's
that can pose a serious problem.
Yeah. And the maintenance, I've heard trailers can be stolen more easily. I don't know if there's anything to
Yeah,
that.
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
But if you're securing it in your wherever you keep it, if it's enclosed, if you're not leaving it on the street, I imagine that's a minimal risk. I guess
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
too. And then from an insurance perspective, from your knowledge, is a situation you have to obviously you have your truck insured and you have business insurance, but do you have to have some sort of automotive type insurance on the trailer itself in addition to the truck, or is it just like one policy if you're going that way?
So technically, I'm not an insurance guru, but
Okay, neither am I.
it's
Yeah.
just this is what my insurance company told me, and
Yeah, not
and,
advice, just what you've seen.
and my father, who's my business partner.
Hmm.
When you have insurance on your truck, that insurance protects the trailer as well.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wouldn't necessarily, I would assume, cover the restaurant equipment inside, which is
Right.
what
It doesn't cover that part. So
you still
it
want your
doesn't.
business insurance, but you need
Yeah.
that with the food truck too.
Right.
Uh,
Right. You still need to have your general liability and business insurance.
Yep, the maintenance side of the food truck. So that first one I got, the engine failed within 6 months, and I was out
Yeah.
of commission for a while, which is kind of the horror story. But I also
Yes.
bought a 22-year-old truck, and uh, my story is a little different because I had the small restaurant, and I was doing it full time. It was really stressful. I ended up getting like a real rebuilt engine, and we got through it, but I had to borrow more money, so that is a
Yeah.
cautionary
Right.
tale. The flip side, though, when I got that other truck, I was able to pay for a nicer truck. I think it was still used, but it was 8, 9 years old at the time. It only had 35,000 miles, far fewer than the first truck I had. And it is a real concern about maintenance, but I found that if I did like a lot of preventive maintenance, it was a little overblown. Like I didn't need to really miss in my career many events with that truck because of truck problem, like a flat tire here or there. But that could
Yeah.
happen with any vehicle.
Right. Right. Right.
And then I remember I never had to do it, but I would actually like think that like in a worst case scenario, if I had a big event scheduled and something went wrong, it would make sense to tow the truck to the event and serve,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Because like I always tell people the cost of the repair is one thing and it's real, and I don't want to minimize that, but the real cost is the lost revenue when you're down and out of
Yes,
commission.
sir. Yep.
And that was like potentially crippling. I had more generator issues than I ever had mechanical issues with that second truck, and I'd sometimes rent a generator just to stay on the road until I had a hole in my schedule to get my regular generator fixed. And that
Gotcha.
brings me to the part I want to talk to you about generator placement that I mentioned earlier. Do you have advice about that for either trucks or trailers? I know it's tricky and a source of consternation for a lot of operators when their generator goes down, and it seems like wherever it's placed, there's a downside. So what do you advise?
Yeah. So so I'll look at it from an aesthetics perspective. So if you don't want to see this generator attached to the back of your truck or your trailer, then obviously you're going to want to look at like Olin's, Cummings, and those you can put inside and have them in a cabinet, and they operate fine. Now the downside is they're close to 10 grand.
Right.
So versus you can get a basic inverter generator for maybe 2 grand, 2,500.
Mm-hmm.
And um I, I'm not partial to either or. What I am against is I try to steer customers away from generator boxes.
Okay.
So on the front of trailers, they normally put a generator box now with a slide out tray. So I try to steer customers away from that. If they don't have a security issue wherever they're storing the trailer, then I'll say it's a waste of money
Mm-hmm.
because you can't run the generator with it necessarily closed because the CO2 alarm will go off on the generator. It becomes a heat issue and it's going to clog the air filter and a whole bunch of other things. So I suggest a generator platform or generator cage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's where I lean more to. It's more cost effective, and it lets the generator run healthy.
And on the trailer, do you suggest placing it on the tongue? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've heard that.
Yeah, yeah. So you can do the tongue. So we put if you're going to do that, then we'll do an extended tongue
Mm-hmm.
and make a platform. And yeah, put it on the tongue. Or we even have we call it half in, half out. So it's half in the trailer and half out the trailer up front. So it's kind of going. It's under the sink a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't find like overheating issues, because I actually had an Onan Cummins and the built-in that you were talking about on my second truck, and it worked great for a couple of years. And then I'd have to get it serviced, and they have their computer codes. So for a while, I was getting serviced by an authorized dealer. Then I found a mechanic who had the software, and he would always tell me from his perspective. He was like a heavy truck mechanic, working with things way bigger than food trucks. That like he described like putting the generator into that cavity as like putting it in a frying pan and then like putting a lid on it so it couldn't breathe when I was driving, which that was really interesting to me. And like I know enough about generators to know that like the airflow is key, and like intuitively I would think you'd want to have it not have the cover on, because that would be like more air, but that's actually really bad, and you need the cover on it for it to like function and draw air correctly in and out. And ever since then, I've just wondered, because it was great from a a consumer standpoint, like my customers didn't see the generator. The noise
Yeah.
is always a concern. It didn't really get too loud. I never had to do heavy lifting, like in and out of the truck. Like I see some people store generators physically in their truck and then have ramps or even hydraulic systems to take them down and attach the
Yep.
cords. Like this one was tied into my gas tank of the truck itself, which was amazing while it worked. And then once it didn't work, I just wondered, is that just the life cycle of the generator? And I didn't have the money to like fully replace it at the time. Or did we actually do something that shortened its life because we were putting it in too warm environment in the underbody of the truck? I don't actually know the answer, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff wasn't meant for how we
right,
use it.
right,
You know,
yeah.
we're misusing it at the end of the day.
It's the same thing with the like cooking equipment, right? Like it's taking a
Yeah,
beat every time you drive around.
exactly. So yeah, so that's why, you know, to put so much money into the Onan's brand, that style generator, versus, man, I think I'm fine with $2,500 getting me a I like the Gen Max generator
Mhm.
myself. Getting me a Gen Max and putting on my generator platform, and yeah, it's good to go. If I need to service it, it's right there. It's easy to service.
Yeah.
You know, it's not enclosed in something where I got to fight to get the. Yeah, it's just
And
easy.
like, if I were working with you right now, one of my generator questions would be, just from my own experience, because I loved how it was tied into the fuel line. Is it possible to have what I had, but also have it on a like some sort of sliding tray? So like when you're operating, you could have it out in the open, so it would be
Yes,
more.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
back. Is that something that
Yep,
you
yep.
see or do? Like I've never
Yeah,
seen
we
that.
do that.
The
Yeah, we do
only
that.
downside I can see to that from an operational standpoint is if you're trying to park really close to a wall or something, maybe it would stick out. But then you could leave it in if you had to for like one
Right,
shift.
right.
It's like, I think the idea for me, coming from the restaurant operation side and not being a builder, like giving myself options to try to make it run as smoothly as it can in that ultimately incorrect setting like you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
unavoidable at the end of the day, like you said, right? Like it's kind of crazy when you think about food trucks, what they are and what they do. And that's the beauty of them too, because you can go places where there aren't food
Yeah,
options for people, and that's how you can do a great business. And
yeah.
yeah, I have a million and one stories about weird places I ended up visiting because of my food truck. Like once I was on the north side of Pittsburgh. There was an unmarked trailer. It was not a food truck. I was serving the people going in and out of it. I was booked, and I asked them what was going on. They were medical students, and it was a mobile cadaver lab. So there were just like human body parts in this trailer.
Wow.
And then, you know, those people need to eat too. And they're like, yeah, this is what we're doing. Because I was by a hospital called Allegheny General Hospital. So I'm assuming they worked with the hospital. Like it was all above board. But then they're like, oh, do you want to come in? And like I pop my head in, and they're just these students like working on legs of people. And, you know, I'm serving them lunch. And a couple times when the Penguins won the Stanley Cup out here, I got to do some events that were a fun, a little more glamorous, movie sets, that sort of thing. And like,
Yeah,
it's really hard to do that if you only have a restaurant. You can try to cater it, but we're talking about like big crowds,
yeah.
like
Right,
a
right.
couple hundred people, and to be able to serve hot food and get to them is incredible. But yeah, you're kind of working with equipment. Like I don't know what that Onan Cummins generator was meant for, but I know it wasn't that. Probably like
Yeah,
construction site where it doesn't move. I guess
yeah,
RVs kind of close to what
yeah.
we do,
Yep,
right?
yeah. So they're very prevalent in RVs, and
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
even with an RV, I'm guessing, well, I guess people are on the road a lot, but um, as far as the maintenance with an RV, it's probably just as big a deal as a food truck as you're moving around and
yeah,
putting
yeah.
container. But maybe they don't draw quite as much power, would be my guess. An
I don't
RV,
think that was where I would go. Like the RV's not pulling as much power as these
right?
food trucks, and then yeah,
And then I think a lot of people who are new to the industry don't realize that a generator is sized specifically for their use, and then they might, you know, buy a truck from someone like you and then decide to add an extra piece of equipment but not take that into account for their generator
yes,
load. And I think that's where a lot of generator problems come from my peers and stuff, and that's something I had to learn about. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
as
yep,
far as like generator ratings, like I'm quite sure you size it out. do you generally leave a little room to grow when you recommend?
I leave growth room. And however, I think the end user, so my client, the end user, they just don't understand power. And
Mhm.
I, I didn't either. And
Right. Why would you?
before
Right.
I geeked out, and I didn't either. So you don't realize how much power a crock pot draws or a
Hmm.
blender. Like these seem like small things, but man, they pull current.
And they're just countertops, so you can just grab one and plug it in and not think twice about it,
Is it,
right?
and that and that's the mindset of people. Well, it's just a countertop. It's not
Mhm.
not a big deal, but
Right.
it is a big deal.
Right. So good word of
Yeah.
caution there. And then let's talk a little bit about the propane side. And I'm also curious, just based on this last convention we were both at, I know there's some people right behind you, actually, if I remember your position, kind of between where you and I were positioned, who do like alternative electric power. So I want to remember to
Yep.
talk about that if
Yep.
you have
Yep.
experience. But before I forget about propane, I mentioned my second truck had these elevated tanks, which were better from a safety standpoint. The manufacturer recommended that to me. The downside, of course, was there were two 40-pound propane tanks. So when they were full, they were 75 pounds, and I routinely had to lift them above my head. And I'm not a massive person, but I'm not small either. I'm 5'11", a
Right.
little 200 pounds, and I could do it. But I've had some bulging discs in my life with my back. It probably
Yeah.
wasn't a good idea for me
Yeah. Yeah.
time. And then there are people smaller than me that I'm not sure they could do it. So I know propane safety is a big issue. Talk to me a little bit with your preferred truck build out for both the trailer side and the actual food truck side. Like, how would you recommend a propane system be installed?
So I'm definitely pro 100 the 100-pound tanks.
Hmm.
And I'm also pro finding you a propane company and having them come out and fill it.
Okay.
Once it's in that cage, you lock it down. Yeah, that's where I stand.
So they'll come to you.
They'll
Um,
come to you.
Yeah, I've never actually done that. I've always just had to find like a propane place, whether it's U-Haul that you mentioned does it a lot, I know, and
Yeah.
a few local places around me that are just like gas and welding supplies. So I'd drive, I'd get it filled. How easy is it to find? Like, is this a common service? And are you paying money?
It's very common. And I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like I'm in a special town or anything.
Yeah,
It's super
that's good.
common.
And like, do those companies, they typically have like 9 to 5 business hours? As far
Yes.
as like, is it
Yeah. I mean,
scheduled?
I'm pretty sure they have emergency hours too.
Right.
Because I mean, these are the same companies who are servicing homes who run off propane or
Gotcha.
businesses who run off like my business here, our heating and everything is done off propane.
Is the pricing is
Yeah,
pretty competitive to if you went and picked it up too, I'm guessing. Yeah.
I think it's spot on.
Okay, that's really good to
Yeah,
know. I was just
yeah,
thinking food truck application, especially like that 36 footer you mentioned to me. Uh,
yeah.
like it's got to be drawing a lot of propane. So 100 pounds is a lot of propane, but I know for me, like my two 40-pound tanks, one thing I did like practically was that like when one ran down, I knew I had so many hours before I had to get it refilled if I was really
Yeah,
busy, and I could figure it out. But like never a problem on the weekdays, but like a lot of our busiest events are the weekends. And
yep.
then you got to figure out like when are these places closed. So if you have 100-pound tank, I think that would easily get me through most weekends. But say you have a really busy weekend and you're these guys with the 36-foot pizza trailer and they're trying to not move for the week, like would that propane company like potentially, depends how far they're traveling, I guess, but can they come to you even when you're not at your home base?
As long as the site would accept them, yeah, they
Yeah.
can go there. Now, however, that unit we have four tanks on,
Okay.
100-pound tanks.
Yeah, so you could easily do it. Wow, that's a lot of propane.
Yeah, that's like
Uh,
a bomb too.
yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I know there's a crazy video of a food truck in Philadelphia. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it just goes up. It's on YouTube in flames because there's a crack in the line. The people were running it, and like the tank.
Wow.
I don't know whether it was a 100-pound tank. I can send it to you later, but I remember someone when I first got a truck showing it to me just to be like, "You got to take this stuff seriously."
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
tank went flying and like landed in someone's backyard. I think everyone survived, but the people on the truck were pretty badly burned. It looks like something out of like a Hollywood movie set.
I bet.
And I'm sure that was not 400 pounds. So the idea of like 400
Yeah.
pounds.
So, which like I'm shocked that for Pennsylvania, I only can speak from Pennsylvania. Like they don't have a regulation on this propane. It's
I
kind of
know.
like they don't even check it, so to speak. Like,
Hmm.
and it's so dangerous.
Something I've learned since I started doing these interviews, which I talked to a propane safety guy that I met at the Las Vegas convention. He was very informative, and I kind of feel like I dodged a bullet. Like I was reasonably cautious, but I was around propane all these years, and there's so much I didn't know.
Yeah.
But the main thing, I guess propane is heavier than air. So like
Yeah.
obviously the basic advice that anyone with common sense can give if you've been in a food truck, like if you smell gas, shut it off from the source, let it
That's
clear.
it.
But it never occurred to me that if you're standing and you smell gas, that means it's already built up from like your feet down.
Yep.
Because I just think of like, as a layman who doesn't know what he's talking about, like, you might have a CO2 detector in your home or a smoke alarm. They're all on the ceiling. But if you had some sort of propane alert system, you'd actually want that lower to the ground. He was telling me,
Yes.
catch it earlier.
Absolutely.
Like, I had no idea. And I know more about propane than most people because I had a food truck for 15 years. I knew
Yep.
enough to like get people to not smoke near it. Sometimes I'd have like employees or customers near the tanks and you have to keep them clear. And I've certainly like singed my face before, like trying to light a pilot
Oh
light.
yeah. Absolutely. Likewise.
I think we've all been there. It's a rite of passage. But yeah, and it can be scary. And I had an employee once forget to close my propane cage, so they're driving, and it was an empty tank, but like swung out. I wasn't on the truck at the time. It was hanging by the propane hose on like a major road, and like that was like one tiny difference from severing and like bouncing and falling into someone's windshield. It's terrifying, right? Like
Yeah.
insurance issues aside, like I would feel awful just as a human that like was responsible for this, even if I had no control over it in the minute. So you really have to take that stuff seriously. And I always like to drive that home. And I'm always looking for tips as to like how can we make this operate as safely as possible for the entire food truck community. So when you have the 400-pound tanks, are they ever in the undercarriage? That's something I've seen before too. I never had a truck like that too, where somehow it's almost like it looks like from an outside user's perspective that you're filling just like a gasoline tank. And
Right. So I no, we've done 100-pounders like that
okay,
in trucks. But that scares me too.
because I could think something could hit it from the bottom, right? And like
Yeah,
I don't.
because anything could pierce that tank.
Right, that's my
You
feeling.
know,
It seems really convenient.
yeah, it's convenient and it's out the way, and from an aesthetic perspective, it's great. But is it practical and
Hmm.
is it safe?
Yeah.
So I have to. A lot of times with my customers, I have to. I understand you want these things, you want to hide this, but it may not be safe.
Hmm.
So like we had one of our customers was inside of Hershey Park.
Hmm.
So and they wanted all. So when they came to us for the build, they wanted all the tank. They had 4 tanks too. They wanted them all closed off. They wanted closed off, top, sides, everything. Well, I said this is not safe,
Hmm.
but they at the end of the day, they're the boss.
Right.
And
They're
that's
gonna
what they want.
do. Yeah.
And
Understood.
so they got it and they set up in Hershey Park, and the propane that company that serviced Hershey Park came out and said, "Oh no, you can't do this."
Uh-huh.
Made them rip it all down because even the guy said even the heat that will accumulate inside of this box is
I see.
dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generally, then, if you're just going with a regular sized trailer, and you do 100-pound tank, would you just recommend having it on the back? It sounds like, as opposed to like underneath.
Yeah,
From
on the back, and raised, and I'm a cage guy. I don't want to enclose with doors and all that. Just in a cage where it
Mhm.
can still breathe, and
Yeah,
if
breathing.
if it's overfilled, it can dissipate, and
Mm.
it's helpful.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
one thing I liked from my second truck too, I had obviously the valve on the tank, but I had other shut-off valves. So I had a shut-off
Yes.
valve going into my truck, and then I had a
Yep.
shut-off valve to every piece of equipment. And that made it a lot
Yes.
safer. Whereas my first truck, it was just like open the tank and then like run to the grill as fast as you could because the
Yep.
propane was building, get the pilot lit, and like
That's it.
did it. But just word of advice to anyone out there that might end up watching this one day, as far as how to make it a little safer. You can have those checkpoints so you can.
Yeah, those are the very important, man. Main shut off. I put a main shut off outside. I put another shut off inside, and each piece of equipment.
And I imagine
So
that doesn't add much expense at all to the build.
no, it's. I mean, it's. Yeah, you're talking about maybe 15, $20 per shut off.
Yeah, so well worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah,
It's worth
absolutely.
it. Yeah, it's totally.
And that way, like if you do have a leak, you can kind of troubleshoot too.
Yeah, you can kind of pinpoint it a little bit here.
Yep.
It helps out. And I do a union. We put what's called a union in there. So if you ever want to expand or add another piece, it's kind of easier.
I see. Yeah. So my 240-pound tanks, I could have them open up one at a time, or I could open up both.
Yep.
And that was kind of nice. And I always noticed in colder weather, I would need to have both open for the propane to draw. And I don't remember the science of it. Somebody explained it to me.
Well, and sometimes in colder weather, condensation builds inside of the gas lines, and you need more of a gas push. That's the best way I can kind of describe it.
Makes sense. But the 100-pound tank would solve that too, right? It's not that I had two tanks.
Yes. So like, it's weird you said that. Look, I had a customer with a 40-pound tank, and he was operating maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and it happened to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, what's going on?" I was like, "What size tank do you got?" And he told me. I was like, "Oh, there you go." I said, "With those tanks, if you're going to operate in the cold, it's best to put like a little tank blanket around it.
Yep.
It'll help you. It'll help you out."
Once we got below 40 degrees, I'd say on my first truck, we'd always have to put a propane blanket. It was electric. Plug it into the truck, and that would keep it running. And then when I had the 2 tanks, I was able, if I just opened them both, it worked for me. So I guess that's kind of like having an 80-pound tank, right?
Yep, exactly.
Standpoint.
It's like a little extra push.
100-pound is even more. So that gets you into the freezing temperatures. Like we've had a lot of cold weather this December, and I never liked operating my food truck in the cold, but sometimes it was a necessity.
Well, I think that's a tough buck, I call it.
Yeah. I don't mind cold if I'm moving around, but man, sitting still in the cold. So like if you don't have passengers, it gets rough quickly. As far as I lost my train of thought. I had another question. Like, do you ever recommend air conditioning or heating systems in your build out? That's something I like to talk to you about building.
Yeah, so the more cost effective is the rooftop ACs, like you see in RVs. But the heat is terrible on those. They have something called a heat strip, but it really produces no heat.
Okay.
But if you're really looking for a good air conditioning heat system, I would say do a mini split.
Mini split.
Yeah. But all that to say, at the end of the day, I think ACs are a waste of money. And
that's what I was asking. Every single food truck builder I've ever talked to has told me that. You're good, honest people, because I'm sure you could make extra money by selling it. But I just know, like my own truck, I was amazed. Like, so I had 2 40-pound fryers, and I had a 30-inch griddle putting off heat. And in summer, it was like consistently over 100 degrees by the grill, but not too bad. And then like if the temperature hit maybe 90 degrees plus outside, 95. It would get so much hotter in the truck. Like the air displacement just stopped doing its thing, and it'd be like 135 degrees. And on the worst days, which is rough. And then still, for as much heat as it traps, in that situation, when it got like cold, I could barely keep my equipment like hot enough to run. If it was like 20 degrees, and it would be freezing on the truck. And you'd think like there'd be some happy medium. But the weather gets extreme, and you kind of learn to deal with it, I guess, as best.
Yeah, I mean,
use a lot of
tell people a fan, get yourself a good fan. Think about airflow when you're setting your trailer up.
But if you had to do an AC system, you'd recommend a split unit. It sounds
like. Yeah, split unit. Yeah, if you have to do it, that's what I recommend.
And I know you mentioned breathing before, so I had my second truck because I had some heating issues with my refrigeration on my first truck. We actually talked through that, and we had like holes punched in the side of the truck with grates over them so the compressors could breathe more easily. And, maybe it was coincidence, but I didn't have problems with those fridges the way I did with my first truck. So another tip, just to get airflow going somehow, somewhere. And then I think wrapping up here, I don't want to take too much of your time, but if you have time, I did want to talk to you about like alternative electric systems. If you have any experience with them, just meaning not a generator, like those guys between us were talking up. I don't exactly know how they work. I'm actually going to talk to them and learn soon myself.
Yes. So I mean, I don't have a ton of experience. The jewel case seems to be what that was a company.
That was the company, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're kind of poking out to be the leaders in the industry for that. My question is, and I didn't really have a lot of time to talk to them, is like how much draw can you get? And then so if you're giving me, let's say 6,000 watts, and when I need to charge those batteries, how long does it take to charge those batteries to get back to about 6,000 watts?
Very good question. Yeah.
And so when I was at the trailer convention in Nashville, I was in a class for hydraulics, but we were going over solar and batteries and all that stuff. And that was the thing, like the thing was getting these batteries to get charged back to full capacity. And that was taking a long time.
That's interesting. That makes sense. It's kind of like an electric vehicle. I've heard the same complaint.
Yeah. So although it can put out this amount of power, that's great and all, but how long is it going to take me to replenish these batteries so I can get up and running to my next event? What if I have an event in the morning and one in the evening?
Sure.
Is this a viable solution? Is this going to work?
Yeah. So at first glance, I love the quiet appeal. Like as an operator, the number one complaint I probably had was like your generator is too loud. Yeah. There's not much I can do about it because I need the power. And I had a nice generator. It was not like a knockoff. I had a backup one from Harbor Freight that was cheap and noisy. And I got a long cable and I put it as far away as I could. But the other one I had was the top of the line. And on my first one, I had a Generac, which is, I think, a respectable brand. Like, they just create noise. And people don't want that noise at their event if possible. So quiet power is intriguing to me. Have you ever done anything with solar power too?
No, and it's for the same reason. Like, I mean, essentially, it's charging. It's the sun that's charging these batteries back up, and it just takes too long to charge them back up.
Gotcha.
When I got involved in hydraulic trailers, and those hydraulics are charged by solar. They got solar panels on them, and it's taking a little while. So, and they're not taking as much power as a food truck. So it's like,
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm iffy. I'm not sold yet. I think the technology is going to come, but my personal opinion is not here yet, and that could be from ignorance on my part too. So.
Sure, and mine as well. Which is why I like to ask questions. But the last thing you want to do is invest in something that's not ready when you need it to be. So caution is probably wise there. But
and those systems are like 13,000, 15 grand.
They're a lot more.
They're not cheap.
But whoever figures it out, probably.
Whoever figures it out, man, they got it.
And you're making me wonder with your questions. Like, I wonder if you could even have like multiple batteries, which would of course be more expensive. Do you like if you had a long day, could you pop one out, charge it while another one?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that's a solution. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I love learning.
You're right. It could be. But how much is that going to cost?
Right. Exactly. And how long does the battery last? All batteries have lifespans, right? So but I guess generators do too, and there's maintenance on. And
then now these batteries are starting to prove to be unsafe. And, they get hot and sun and so really quick. My house burned down maybe 4 years ago, and it was all because of a battery.
Wow.
A lithium battery.
Was this like a small one that would be in your phone, or
like a that's on a Ryobi trimmer?
Yeah, so nothing big.
Nothing. It got hot from the sun, and it combusted.
Wow, we're gonna scare him away with our propane and battery talk here.
So now it's like, man, I don't know what these batteries are made of.
Sure. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your house.
But we made it through.
Dramatic, yeah. And then I'm not in a rush, and we can wrap up here, but my last question was always like, do you feel like I missed anything? Do you want to talk about your own company at all, or how you got into it?
We could talk about how I got into all of this.
That's always an interesting.
It wasn't on purpose. I'll
Hmm.
be honest. I'm originally from North Carolina, so I'm a barbecue guy.
Hmm.
So barbecue's been in my blood forever. And essentially I started doing barbecue on the side and small caterings and to-go meals and things of that nature. And so that led me to saying, hey man, maybe I should get a food truck. So anything I get involved in, I kind of nerd out and geek out because I want to know everything.
Hmm.
So I started doing my research and I'm looking for food trucks and I'm like, this is pretty pricey. I don't know if I can afford it. And I had a friend of mine saying, maybe you should build your own. And I
Hmm.
was like, I was looking at some YouTube videos. There wasn't many videos out back then.
Right.
So yeah, I went for it. I bought a trailer. I remember going to North Carolina, I bought a trailer and I brought it back here to Pennsylvania and I started outfitting and building it out and getting frustrated and headaches and weeks of thinking I made a bad decision, all that good stuff. And then in that same friend who told me to build a trailer in the midst of my frustration, he was like, you know what, you should even start a business building it. Now I'm in the middle of building trailers and building this trailer and I'm frustrated. All I want to do is get to the finish line and I never want to do this again.
Hmm.
But I finally finished. And as soon as I finished, that very week, someone called me and said, hey, I'll buy that trailer from you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so someone bought it from me. I bought the trailer for $3,000. Someone bought it for me for 15,000.
Okay.
And I was like, man, maybe maybe I have something here. So yeah, 8 years later, I'm here.
I was just gonna ask how long ago was that? So
Yeah, I was 8 years later. Yeah, we've been building for 8 years. I was doing it. So it's probably like 10 years total, the whole process. But yeah,
hmm. And did you ever end up doing barbecue, or you just ended up being a truck
I
builder?
did. So I eventually built me another one and I was doing it, but then the trailer building got too
Sure.
busy. And
Yeah.
I had to decide to sell it. I had to stop.
I know a guy here in Pittsburgh that similar story to you. He used to have an ice cream truck, and now he just builds trucks because he's really handy. Like he used to be a Zamboni mechanic, and he
Yeah.
built his own motorcycles, and like yeah, he kind of fell into it. But that's sometimes the best way for things to happen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it sounds like you enjoy it.
I do. I educated myself, and then
Mhm.
then you start to realize there's a big difference between a food trailer and a repurposed cargo trailer. It's a huge difference. So once you get into it a little bit, you realize you can go buy a cargo trailer from anywhere and try to repurpose it. But I'm going to tell you, the steel that they use, this thing is not made to handle the weight of a mobile kitchen.
I see. That's good to
It's
know.
just not.
Yeah, this is the side of
So
stuff I wouldn't know, right? As a
yeah. So they're using thin 11 gauge steel, and some of them are not even tube steel. Some of it's what's called Z channel or hat steel, and this is like profile, and it's very thin and flimsy.
Mhm.
So a real food truck builder. That's why I say the anatomy is so important. A real food truck builder. The questions you want to ask them is what gauge steel are they using?
Mhm.
Is it tube steel? The flooring is the 16 on center, 24 on center, or the wall 16 on center, 24 on center, 48 on center. The roof, same thing. These are questions that need to be answered.
Okay.
And
What
if
does
they
16
can't answer them,
on center
you
mean?
got a mess.
Yeah. What does 16 on center mean when you say that? Like,
So every stud is 16 inches. The center of each stud is 16
see.
inches apart. So
Yeah,
the closer they are, the more rigidity you have.
that's a great explanation. Yeah, I think part of it, if what I'm doing builds any sort of following, what I hope is we can kind of bridge the gap with jargon that like people on the build side know and people in the
Yeah,
restaurants know. So I always like to drill down and get as clear an
yeah,
explanation
absolutely.
as possible. So I appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, and study the welds. Like, you could tell if the company can weld, even if the company puts let's say it's hard to see the welds underneath, not underneath, but inside of the trailer because it's covered up. But if you just look at the propane cage that they have, look at
Mm-hmm.
those welds, because that's going to tell you how good they weld.
Quality
And
of the
a
build.
lot of those welds are crappy.
Sure.
The cold welds undercutting. It's just they're, they're going to break. They're not good. So
Mm-hmm.
that can tell you a lot. But if you don't know to look for these things, you know,
Yeah, that
sometimes
makes
they
sense.
just spray it black spray paint and you think it's good to go.
Sure.
Gotta be careful.
Covering it up. And then
Yep.
as far as like if anybody wants to work with you that happens to watch this, is the best way to find you your website?
Yeah, my website, www.completeconcession.com or at Complete Concession on all the social networks.
Yep, and outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, you said, right?
Yep. We're right outside of Harrisburg's, maybe 45 minutes from Philadelphia,
Okay,
45 minutes from Baltimore.
not far from Hershey Park, right?
Hershey Park is the next exit up for me.
Gotcha. I used to go there when I was in middle school. When I was a
Yeah,
student,
that's it. Yep.
like a jazz band competition in middle school that I'd go to. So 3 years in a row, I went to Hershey Park, and it's probably been 30 years since I've been there. But I have really good memories. I gotta get back sometime.
Yeah, they're one of our best customers, to be honest.
That's great.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Yep.
Well, thanks.